The Truth About Goblins. Chapter 18. Between the three of them, no one had thought to bring a watch. The minutes could have been hours for all they knew. The time weighed on their minds all the more for not knowing it, and the further they continued into the mines, the heavier the silence became. At last, Annie had to speak. "Are we close?" she said. "It feels like we've been walking forever." "I feel a breeze," said Saphira. "There must be an opening ahead." Annie hoped she was right. She didn't like the sensation of going deeper underground. Had she been alone, it would have been unbearable. Only by the glow of Kit's fireball and Saphira's white light did she manage to keep her nerves together. That, and the fact that Kit would tease her to no end if he knew just how scared she really was. "Hey, I think I see it," he said. "Yep, up ahead. There's a crack in the ceiling." They picked up the pace, all three of them tired from their lengthy trek. As the floor leveled out, they turned their gaze upwards. There was a crack in the ceiling made up of pale, colorless light. Not exactly what I was hoping for," said Annie, staring at the skinny line of light. "We're really far down, aren't we?" "Yes," said Saphira, her eyes scanning the crack overhead. "Can either of you see the bridge from here?" "Yeah, it's that black stripe stretching across it," said Kit, pointing to where a thin line intersected the light. "We've still got a ways to go. Which side of the bridge did you drop it?" "I didn't drop it," she muttered. "And it was on the right side, the other side." He gave a low whistle. "We're still pretty far." "Then let's not stall," she said, glancing to where the floor began to separate. "And stay on this side. I know it fell on this side of the gap." "Well, that narrows it down," said Annie, half-heartedly. She wasn't fond of the endless pit resting by her feet. One slip, and they were dead for sure. But the others said nothing about the risk, so she kept silent. She didn't want to look spineless in front of Kit. Unfortunately for her, he was using his crystal. "Hey," he whispered. "It's all right, kid. Just chillax, 'kay?" She replied with a nod. From that point on, she tried not to think in words. Kit wouldn't be able to bother her if she thought in images. But the images that came to mind didn't help her relax at all. "Wait," said Saphira, coming to a halt. "What is it?" asked Kit. She leaned over the edge of a sudden drop-off. "The path ends here." Glancing left and right, she sighed. "And it doesn't look like we can go around." "Oh well," said Annie. "I guess we have to turn around and go back." "No, I'm going down," said Saphira, bringing out a rope from her satchel. Finding a sturdy stalagmite, she made a loop and tied the rope. "You two don't have to come." "Yeah, right," said Kit, tugging on the rope to make sure it was tight. "And what are we supposed to tell Timothy when you don't show up for supper? We're coming, no matter what." "Speak for yourself," said Annie, watching the other two fiddle with the rope. "I was ready to leave hours ago. This is getting seriously dangerous, and no one knows we're down here." "Are you saying you want to wait here?" he said. "We can come get you on our way back." "Oh no, don't you even think of ditching me." "Keep it quiet, you two," said Saphira, beginning her descent. "I need to focus." They both watched as she made her way down the slippery wall. "Where's the ground?" said Annie. "I can't even see it from here." "Looks like 2 stories lower, at least," said Kit. "Watch what you're doing." "I'm fine," said Saphira, already halfway down. Her resolve had taken the two by surprise. They never would have guessed she was so fearless. To everyone's relief, she made it to the ground. Kit was next to follow, making the descent effortlessly. Annie had a little more trouble, but pulled through out of spite as he started teasing her from below. Without further incident, the three continued. Although there were no more drops in their way, they were met with plenty of inclines and paths that led them even further down. By the time they were directly under the bridge, the crack of light up above was nearly invisible. "It has to be around here," said Saphira, stooping down to examine the terrain. "Make sure it's not lodged in a crevice or something." Kit searched a different area, carrying his fireball with him. Annie, without a light, stayed between the other two and tried to cover some ground despite her disadvantage. The sooner they found the crystal, the sooner they could leave. Scanning the rocks for any telltale signs, a tiny glow attracted her attention. Through a crack in a jumble of dislodged stones, there was a light. Carefully removing the rocks from the pile, she reached in and grabbed it. It looked like a large piece of rock candy, similar to Kit's crystal, only white. It glowed all the brighter as she held it. "Guys, I think I found it." And then, a little louder, "Guys, I found it." Saphira cried out and ran to Annie, her eyes jumping to the crystal. "Oh," she exclaimed. "Thank you, thank you, thank you. Really, you have no idea how much this means to me." "No problem," she said, relieved that they had been able to find it so quickly. "Can we go now?" "Yes," she said, reaching for the crystal. "Be careful not to touch me, Annie, not while you're touching the crystal, or else you'll be thrown into my memories, and believe me, you don't want to experience half of them." Annie took her advice and held the necklace by its leather cord. Saphira grabbed the crystal and sighed as she held it against her chest. "Oh, I am fortunate. Truly, I don't deserve to hold it, not after my carelessness." She looked up at Kit and Annie, on the verge of tears. "I'm sorry I dragged you down here. I've been a terrible friend." She reached out and hugged them both. Hey now," stammered Kit. "None of that. Not until we get out again." "Yes, of course." She wrapped the crystal in cloth and placed it in her satchel. "Let's not spend any more time down here. Not more than we have to, at least." All three stood and continued, going back the way they came. Happy to be going upwards rather than downwards, Annie kept quiet, satisfied with the thought that they would eventually reach the surface. But as they neared the drop-off they had previously descended, they were met with a terrible surprise. "Hey," said Kit, running up to the cliff. "The rope, it's—" He picked up the cord and ran it through his hands. It was no longer attached to the stalagmite at the top. Saphira stood next to him, running her finger over the edge of the rope. "It's been cut." "More like chewed through," he said, throwing it back to the ground. "Something's come along and bit off our rope." Annie's eyes went wide. "Goblins." "No, just a hungry animal of some sort," said Saphira. "It probably stopped chewing on the rope once it realized it wasn't food." Kit turned his gaze upwards. "Too slippery to climb. Too high to throw anyone over. We have to find a different way out." "Are you serious?" exclaimed Annie. She couldn't keep her own voice steady. "This is what I was afraid of." "Well, there's no sense in losing our heads," said Saphira, walking past her. "If we have to go around, we'll go around. If we have to find another way out, that's just what we'll do." "Right," said Kit, close behind her. "Come on, Annie, maybe we'll find a shortcut." "Sure." Her resolve had left her hours ago. She knew something like this would happen. Why didn't she just turn back when she had the chance? She took a deep breath and tried to steady her nerves. At least she wasn't alone. And they had plenty of light. Things could have been a lot worse. But her optimism faded as the minutes dragged by. Once again, they found themselves traveling down steep slopes rather than finding another way upwards. It took forever to find a fork in the road, and even then, choosing a new direction only led them away from the chasm and into another set of tunnels. But what choice did they have? Saphira entered, with the others close behind her. Still they continued, drawing further away from the surface. How many hours had they been down there, alone in the darkness? Surely it hadn't been all day. The most aggravating of these thoughts was the knowledge that they simply couldn't be sure. The endless obscurity threatened to eat away at their reason. With some relief, they entered another expanse. At least they had escaped the cramped tunnels. But the three were only met with more difficulty as they looked ahead to an old wooden bridge stretching across a gap so deep they couldn't see the bottom. With no way around it, they were forced to either turn back or cross over. Saphira set her foot on the old boards, trying her weight. Kit pulled her back. "Whoa!" he exclaimed, his cry echoing off the walls. "What do you think you're doing? Remember what happened the last time you stepped on some rickety boards?" He tiptoed around her, taking an uncertain step onto the bridge. "Let me go first, just to see if it's safe." Annie watched him, eyes wide. "Kit, I don't—" "Are you thinking we ought to turn back?" he said. "'Cause I don't think that's too smart an idea. We don't have time. All we can do is push ahead." The difficult journey had set them all on edge. Annie didn't argue, but held her breath as Kit carefully stepped from plank to plank across the gap. Luckily, he managed to make it to the other side. Holding his fireball as high as he could, he looked to Annie. "Your turn," he said. "Saphira will hold her light up too. That way you can see where you're going." Annie cast a doubtful look at the bridge, but Saphira nodded and said, "It's safer this way. Go ahead." She took a hesitant first step, drawing back as the boards creaked under her weight. But being between the other two gave her the confidence to keep going. She moved slowly, but eventually made it to the other side. Now it was Saphira's turn. As she put her leg forward, her gaze fell to the strips of t-shirt wrapped around her leg. Her heart started racing as she remembered her first nasty fall. "You can do it," she thought, trying her best not to look down. "You can do it." Halfway across, the wood began to creak. She stopped, afraid, but it continued to groan. A few seconds more and it started to splinter. She screamed and threw herself onto the railing. The bottom of the bridge gave way. It fell downwards with deathly speed, screeching as the rusty nails pulled away from the rotting wood. Saphira hadn't fallen, but she was hanging on to the bridge's railing with all her strength, paralyzed by fear. With both her arms wrapped around the remaining structure, she couldn't keep her light aglow. She could only hang there, helpless in the dark. "Saphira!" cried Annie. "Saphira, are you okay?" "I'm stuck," she stammered, her voice barely a whisper. Kit raised his fireball, trying to make out what had happened to the bridge, but the light was too faint to reveal anything past his arm. Saphira could see them, but they couldn't see her. "I'm gonna go get her," he said, approaching the bridge. Whoa, wait a minute," said Annie. "I don't think you should do it. What if the whole thing collapses?" He tried not to think about it. He grabbed the railing and began to make his way over the mess of beams and nails. The floor of the bridge had fallen away completely, leaving the railing as his only support. But he was nothing if not nimble. "I'm coming," he said, trying to keep his fireball lit. Soon he could see her, holding the bridge in a death grip, her eyes shut tight. When he was close enough to hear her, she whispered, "I don't want to fall." "Don't need to tell me twice." He reached for her hand. "Just let go of this for a second." No, I don't want to let go." "Just trust me, all right?" He took her hand in his and guided it to the next section of railing. "There, you see? Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Now you just gotta move your foot." Slowly but surely, the two were making progress. But Saphira was painfully slow, and Annie could see that their combined weight was stressful on the bridge. Even as they moved, she could hear it groaning. "Hurry up!" Another section began to fall. "Saphira!" All too late, Saphira felt the railing collapse under her feet. She reached out for the section that Kit was on, but her hand missed its mark and was left grasping at air. "No!" He let go of the railing and reached for her. Their hands met, and Saphira's full weight came down on his arm. The force nearly yanked him off the railing, but he gave up his fireball and managed to grab hold at the last second. "Kit!" yelled Annie. "Saphira!" Without his fireball, everything was dark. All she could hear was their heavy breathing and a brief cry from Kit as he struggled to hold on. Her eyes adjusted to the darkness. She couldn't make out everything, but she could see that he wasn't going to last. She stepped onto the railing. Its creaking and groaning warned her that it could collapse within seconds, but there wasn't time to hesitate. With one hand on the bridge, she reached out and tried to pull him up. But their combined weight was too much. Desperate, she resorted to using her legs to hold on to the structure, reaching down with both her arms. But just as she got her legs wrapped around one of the beams, Kit's grip gave out completely. "Kit!" She grabbed his arm. He yelled out in pain as she grasped his hand. His arms were stretched out between the two girls, the force of the weight tearing at his body. Saphira grabbed his legs and relinquished his arm so he could reach for Annie. He tried his best, but as she grasped his other hand, she realized he was spent. She was going to have to bring all three of them up on her own. But she didn't have the strength. It was all she could do to keep from letting go. She couldn't think of anything but hanging on. Someone screamed, but it was lost to her. Nothing existed except for the pain. And then it was gone. With a loud crack that could have been lightning, the railing of the bridge gave out. There was no time to move, no time to think. 1 second they were hanging, and the next they were falling. All three of them, into the endless obscurity below. Hey, hi, I'm your narrator, Miranda Eastwood, also the author of The Truth About Goblins. If you liked this chapter, remember to add, follow, or subscribe to this channel so you can hear the next one. And if you didn't like this chapter, oh well, I can't really do anything about that. In any case, I just thought I'd let you know about my Patreon. You can check it out if you'd like to throw some support my way. It would mean a lot to me. Not to mention there's loads of extra exclusive content that I only post on Patreon. While I'm at it, I'll mention that The Truth About Goblins is now available as a complete audiobook, and you can get it wherever you get your audiobooks. Thanks for listening.